Oh Lord, why did you create me like this? Nobody loves me. Oh God, help me.
Take this dress and you will become a very beautiful lady when you wear it. Nobody will laugh at you again. But remember, never wash this dress, or if water touches this dress, you will die.
Remember my warning. Never wash the dress, you will die. You will die.
In a quiet rural village deep in Nigeria, surrounded by tall palm trees and red laterite paths, there lived a woman everyone knew, but not for good reasons. Her name was Abene, yet very few people ever called her by it. To most villagers, she was only a subject of mockery. A shadow people laughed at whenever she passed. Abene was extremely skinny, so skinny that her body looked as though the wind could carry her away. Her legs were long and thin like dry sticks picked from the bush, with knees that jutted out sharply, as if they had been carved wrongly by nature. When she walked, her legs shook slightly under her weight, making her steps uneven. Her arms were just as thin, with bones clearly visible beneath her dark, stretched skin. Her shoulders sloped downward, giving her a hunched appearance, as though she was always apologizing for existing. Her face, sadly, brought her the most pain. Her cheekbones stood out sharply, her eyes were sunken and always looked tired, as if she had cried too much for one lifetime. One of her eyes slightly turned inward, and her lips were dry and often cracked. Her hair was thin and stubborn, refusing to grow long no matter how hard she tried. No matter what clothes she wore, whether old wrappers or second-hand dresses, nothing ever seemed to fit her properly. Everything hung loosely on her body, making her look even more fragile and unwanted. From childhood, Abene knew nothing but rejection. Whenever she walked through the village market, women would whisper and laugh behind their hands. Children, who were too innocent to hide cruelty, openly pointed at her. See her legs. Like broomsticks, one child would shout, another would laugh and say, "Is she even a real woman?" Men avoided her path, some covering their mouths to hide their laughter, others shaking their heads in pity. Even the village dogs seemed to bark at her more than anyone else, as if sensing her weakness. Abene learned early to keep her head down. She walked quickly, eyes fixed on the ground, hoping to disappear before anyone noticed her. But no matter how hard she tried, she could never escape the cruel eyes of the village. Her pain deepened when her parents died. They were the only people who had ever loved her without conditions. Her mother used to hold her close at night, brushing her hair gently and telling her, "You are beautiful to me, my child. Do not listen to the world." Her father would defend her whenever people mocked her, standing tall and reminding them that every human was created by God, but death took them too soon. After their burial, Abene's life fell apart completely. She was sent to live with extended family members who never wanted her. To them, she was a burden, an ugly reminder they were ashamed to be associated with. They gave her the hardest chores, fetching water before dawn, washing dirty clothes, sweeping compounds until her thin arms ached. They fed her last, and sometimes not at all. If food finished, they told her to sleep hungry. "You should be grateful we even allow you here," one aunt would say coldly. "Look at you. Who would want such a creature in their house?" At night, Abene slept alone on a thin mat in a small corner of the room, listening to others laugh and talk happily. She would quietly turn her face to the wall and cry, pressing her mouth against the mat so no one would hear her sobs. As years passed, girls her age began to marry. There were celebrations, music, colorful wrappers, and laughter. Abene watched from afar as brides were praised for their beauty, their bodies, their future. Sometimes she was invited to weddings, not out of kindness, but because every ceremony needed someone to do the dirty work. Women would look at her and whisper, "This one. She would die in her father's house." No man would dare marry her. Each word cut her heart like a knife. At night, alone in her small room, Abene cried endlessly. She would sit on the floor, hugging her thin knees to her chest, tears dripping onto her legs like rain on dry sticks. She often spoke to herself in a broken voice, asking God why He created her this way. She wondered what sin she committed to deserve such loneliness. She dreamed of love, of someone holding her hand without shame, but every morning, reality greeted her with cruelty. The loneliness became unbearable, the rejection, the mockery, the silence of unanswered prayers, everything piled up inside her fragile heart. She felt invisible, unwanted, and cursed. Each night, the darkness in her room felt heavier, as if it was pressing her down. One evening, after another day of insult and laughter thrown at her like stones, Ebony made a decision. Her tears dried, her heart hardened, and her mind became strangely calm. Out of desperation, she decided to end her life in deep forest, but something happened. The forest was quiet in a frightening way. Tall trees stood close together, their branches blocking the sky, making the place dark even though the sun had not yet set. The wind whispered softly, brushing against the dry leaves on the ground. Birds suddenly flew away as Ebony stepped deeper into the forest, her weak legs trembling with every step. Her heart was beating fast, not from fear alone, but from the pain she carried inside her chest. This is the end, she whispered to herself, tears rolling down her sunken cheeks. No one will miss me. No one will cry for me. She reached a clearing deep inside the forest and stopped. Her breath was heavy. Her hands shook as she looked around, searching for a strong tree branch. The silence felt heavy, as if the forest itself was watching her. Just as she was about to take another step forward, a strange voice broke the silence. My child, why are you crying so bitterly? Ebony froze. Her heart nearly jumped out of her chest. Slowly, fearfully, she turned around. Standing a few steps away from her was a very old woman. The woman looked ancient, as though she had lived longer than the forest itself. Her back was slightly bent, and her face was covered in deep wrinkles that told stories of many years. Her eyes, however, were sharp and glowing, shining with a strange wisdom. She wore old, faded clothes, and leaned on a crooked walking stick. Ebony's legs grew weak. Fear gripped her completely. Who are you? Ebony asked in a shaking voice, stepping backward. The old woman smiled gently. Do not be afraid, my child. I am only a passerby. But sorrow called me here. Ebony burst into tears immediately. All the pain she had been holding inside spilled out at once. She fell to her knees, crying loudly, her thin shoulders shaking violently. Out of fear, sadness, and desperation, she poured out her heart to the old woman. She spoke of her ugliness. She spoke of her skinny body and stick-like legs. She spoke of the laughter, the insults, the rejection. She spoke of her parents' death and how no one wanted her. She spoke of the loneliness, the nights she cried herself to sleep, and the weddings she watched from afar. She spoke of how no man had ever looked at her with love. She spoke of how tired she was of living. I am tired, Mama, she cried. I am tired of being alone. I am tired of being mocked. I am tired of waking up every day just to suffer. The old woman listened quietly, nodding slowly. When Ebony finished, the woman sighed deeply and shook her head. Oh, the world can be cruel, she said softly. People see with their eyes, not with their hearts. The old woman looked at Ebony for a long moment, then made a decision. My child, she said, I will help you. Ebony lifted her head in shock. You will help me? The old woman reached into a small, old bag she was carrying. Slowly, carefully, she brought out a folded dress. The dress was unlike anything Ebony had ever seen. It shimmered softly, even in the dark forest. Its fabric looked smooth and rich, with beautiful patterns woven into it. The colors were deep and glowing, changing slightly when the light touched them. It looked expensive, royal, and powerful, far beyond anything someone like Ebony could ever dream of wearing. This dress, the old woman said calmly, will change your life. Ebony stared at it with wide eyes. When you wear this dress, the old woman continued, you will become beautiful beyond imagination. Your body will be admired. Your face will shine. People who once mocked you will love you. Men will desire you. You will be celebrated and respected. Ebony's heart beat wildly. It sounded too good to be true, but the old woman's face suddenly became serious. There is one rule, she warned, you must never allow this dress to touch water. Never. If water touches this dress, terrible things will happen to you. Fear entered Ebony's eyes at first. She shook her head violently. No, no. I cannot accept this, she said. What if something bad happens? What if this is a trap? The old woman nodded calmly. You are free to refuse. But remember, once you leave this forest, your life will remain the same. Ebony fell silent. Images of laughter, insults, loneliness, and endless tears filled her mind. She remembered the pain, the hunger, the rejection. Slowly, her fear was replaced by desperation. With trembling hands, she accepted the dress. Thank you, she whispered, bowing her head. Thank you for giving me hope. The old woman smiled faintly. Go, my child. But remember my warning. Before Ebony could say another word, the old woman turned and slowly walked away, disappearing into the forest as if she had never been there. Still shaking, Ebony held the dress tightly and hurried back to the village. When she reached her small room, her heart was pounding. Without wasting time, she closed the door and put on the dress. The moment the dress touched her body, something extraordinary happened. Her skinny body filled out perfectly. Her stick-like legs became smooth and shapely. Her arms grew soft and attractive. Her posture straightened, and her face transformed. Her sunken eyes became bright and sparkling, her skin glowed, her lips became full and beautiful, and her hair grew thick and luxurious. Ebony stared at her reflection and gasped. She was stunning. She stepped outside, and the village went silent. People stopped walking. Women dropped what they were carrying. Children stared with open mouths. Men turned around in shock. Is that Ebony? Someone whispered. No one laughed. Instead, people smiled at her. They greeted her warmly. Women rushed to compliment her beauty. Men followed her with admiration in their eyes. Some even began proposing marriage immediately. For the first time in her life, Ebony felt seen. For the first time, she felt loved. For the first time, she belonged. From that day onward, Ebony's life completely changed. The same people who once mocked her now rushed to greet her every morning. Women invited her into their homes. Children followed her happily. Men competed for her attention, bringing gifts and praising her beauty. Wherever she passed, heads turned and whispers followed, but this time, they were whispers of admiration. Not long after, one respected young man in the village came forward boldly to ask for her hand in marriage. He was handsome, wealthy, and admired by many. The village elders gathered, and the marriage was celebrated with drums, dancing, and joy. Ebony, once the forgotten girl, became the center of attention. Her wedding day was grand. She wore the magical dress, and she looked like a queen. People could not stop praising her. Some even said she was the most beautiful woman the village had ever seen. As she walked beside her husband, her heart was filled with happiness, but deep inside, fear lived quietly. She never forgot the old woman's warning. After marriage, Ebony became very careful. She never washed the dress with water. Instead, she hid it carefully, wiped it gently, and avoided rain at all costs. Whenever other women asked why she never washed her favorite dress, she laughed nervously and changed the subject. Time passed, and Ebony became pregnant. The whole village celebrated her. Her husband was proud, and when she gave birth to her first child, there was great joy. Later, she had more children. Her home was filled with laughter, songs, and happiness, something she never imagined possible. But not everyone was happy for her. Among the women who smiled at her face were jealous hearts. One woman in particular watched Ebony closely. She noticed something strange. No matter how dirty the dress became, Ebony never washed it. Rain never touched her. Even during heavy storms, Ebony stayed indoors. Suspicion grew. The jealous woman began to observe carefully and soon discovered the truth. She whispered to others, and together, driven by envy and bitterness, they planned to destroy Ebony's happiness. One afternoon, when Ebony was distracted, the jealous woman struck. They poured water on her dress. At that very moment, a terrible thing happened. Ebony screamed. The beauty vanished instantly. Her body shrunk back. Her legs became thin like sticks again. Her face returned to its former shape, sunken eyes, sharp cheekbones, dull skin. The magical glow disappeared completely. The village gasped in horror. People stepped back in fear and disgust. Is this who she really is? Someone shouted. Laughter returned, but this time, it was louder and more painful than before. Her husband was shocked, ashamed, unable to accept what he saw. One by one, people turned away from her. Even her husband rejected her. He took the children and ran away, unable to face the shame of being married to someone he now saw as ugly. Ebony was left alone again, but this time, the pain was worse. She lost everything: love, family, respect, and hope. The loneliness returned heavier than before. Nights became longer. Tears soaked her pillow. She locked herself inside her room, refusing to see anyone. Depression swallowed her completely. With no strength left and no reason to live, Ebony ended her life quietly in her room. When news of her death spread, the village fell silent. People regretted their actions. Women cried. Men shook their heads in shame. But regret came too late. After her death, strange things began to happen at night. People claimed they saw a sad figure moving around the village, a lonely soul wandering, crying softly. It was Ebony's spirit, restless and broken, still searching for the love and acceptance she never truly received in life, and her sorrowful presence became a warning to the village forever. After Ebony's burial, the village was never the same again. At first, people tried to continue their normal lives, pretending nothing had happened. But deep inside, guilt sat heavily in their hearts. The elders could not forget how they once praised her beauty and later rejected her without mercy. The women who poured water on her dress avoided each other's eyes, pretending to be innocent, yet sleep no longer came easily to them. Then the strange events began. Late at night, when the moon was high and the village paths were quiet, people started hearing soft crying. It was not the cry of a child or an animal, it was the sound of deep sorrow, slow and painful, as if the crier's heart had been broken many times. Some said they saw a thin figure walking slowly near Ebony's former house, her head bowed, her legs long and weak like sticks. Others claimed they saw her near the market at dawn, standing silently where she was once mocked, her eyes full of tears. She is not resting, the villagers whispered in fear. Her spirit is troubled. Children began falling sick without explanation. Crops failed in farms belonging to those who hurt her the most. Nightmares spread across the village, dreams of a woman crying and asking, "Why did you love me only for my beauty?" The jealous women were the first to suffer greatly. One could not stop shaking. Another lost her voice. Another began seeing Ebony in her dreams every night, standing beside her bed, looking at her with sad, accusing eyes. They ran to the elders, crying and confessing everything they had done. The elders called an emergency gathering. They realized, too late, that their village had committed a great sin, not against Ebony's body, but against her soul. They judged her by appearance, used her when she was beautiful, and discarded her when she was not. An old man stood up and said with a shaking voice, "We killed her with our tongues before she died in her room." The village performed rituals, prayers, and sacrifices, begging Ebony's spirit to forgive them and find peace. For days, the crying sounds continued. Then, slowly, they began to fade. One final night, a woman claimed she saw Ebony's spirit standing at the edge of the forest where everything began. She was no longer crying. She only looked back at the village once, her face filled with sadness, and then she walked into the darkness and disappeared forever. After that night, peace returned, but the lesson never left. From that day onward, the village changed its ways. No one mocked the weak again. Orphans were treated with care. People were warned never to judge a person by appearance alone, because beauty can be taken away, but the wounds caused by cruelty can last beyond death. And whenever parents wanted to teach their children kindness, they told them the story of Ebony, the woman who was loved for her beauty, rejected for her appearance, and remembered as the spirit that taught a village how dangerous cruelty can be. The end. Tales by NB.